So my friends and I have been making paper computer games for each other to play since we were kids, and these games have always had their own stories. A series of adventures with characters that keep coming back, like the farmer and Zuvak, the robot clown on a stick. Over time, I started making my own games. Other friends made their own games, and these stories connected to the stories from Chris's games. Those same characters could come back and go in new directions. And since I've started this YouTube channel, a lot of you have connected your stories to ours as well, and this has grown into a massive shared universe which we call the PCG Universe. Anyone can make stories that are part of our universe. You can make new games that use our characters, whether they're PCGs, paper games, or even TCGs that add to the lore. But that's hard to do for a lot of people who don't even know what this universe even is. Like, what is its lore? Who are the characters? And if that's you, you've come to the right place. Let's break down the lore of paper computer games. The earliest PCGs started from basically almost a dream version of us as kids having adventures. So, for that reason, the main hero of most early PCGs was Zach, basically me, since I was the one playing the games, and I got all our friends at the time as my sidekicks. Ari, Chris, Laura, and so on. And it's set in basically the real world because it's branching out from our real lives. The story starts with me visiting my friend Chris, only something's wrong, and Chris's parents are trying to kill me. That's a whole story in its own right, so you can check out my video on the first PCG ever made for the whole episode. But basically from there, Zach escapes into the sewers and had an adventure there, and each game continued from the last one with Zach having more adventures and getting attacked by random people. But over time, some real lore started to take shape. We find out that the random people attacking him have all been working for an evil company called The Company. And we really don't know who they are or what they do, but they're always trying evil schemes. A bunch of times Zach breaks into their facilities where they have robots and traps and enemies, and this guy called the Fat Guy who blocks your path, and you have to trick him into drinking Slim Fast, which makes him shrink. Inside one of the facilities, he meets Zuvak, a robot with no arms on a tripod. Zuvak was created by the company and works for them, but he has a conscience, so he helps Zach with clues. Zach in turn rescues Zuvak and reprograms him, and they escape together. Since that time, Zuvak's been a constant ally, always contacting Zach to let him know what's going on, alerting him to what the company's up to. Zach's also gone on other adventures, traveling through time, into alternate dimensions, and so on. There's a lot more lore to get into from the Zach saga, the Zach adventures, whatever you want to call it. I'll do a whole video on that at some point, but the PCG universe is a lot bigger than that. Zach and friends, for example, have gone on adventures into space and even to other planets. And eventually, a lot of games have been made that fully take place on other planets within the same universe with new characters. For example, the planet Shri. My PCG, The Last of the Zerelta, takes place on Shri, but 1,000 years ago when the king of the Zerelta nation, King Ginkis, is overthrown by a rebellion. The game is Ginkis' adventure as he has to escape from his prison, fight his way back to his capital building, and seal it off in a stasis field for 1,000 years by climbing to the top of the tower and holding his staff above his head. That game takes place 1,000 years ago, but there's also games set in the present day on Shri where we see that King Ginkis is still sealed away in the stasis field after 1,000 years, while the evil Kroden, the rebellion that overthrew him, are ruling the planet with an iron fist and torturing anyone who resisted them. Zach's friends Ari and Pierre crash land on Shri at this time, along with Zuvak, who gets reprogrammed by the Kroden and becomes evil again. Or the planet Zoniad, created by Kurt for his PCG Malfoy the Mailbox Bot. Zoniad is a planet run by robots separated into distinct zones, like there's the Cone Zone where cone-shaped robots live, and the Box Zone where robots made of boxes live, and so on. And on that world, a mailman robot named Malfoy has to deliver the mail. Later PCGs like Spaceballs return to this world, and we find out that Zoniad isn't actually a planet. It's a world built on the surface of the Fat Guy's body. Yes, the same Fat Guy who used to block Zach's path in his adventures apparently He's grown to the size of a planet, and now all these robot cities have been built on top of him. How could that have happened? Well, we learned that in a series of comics my dad made called The Perfect One. It chronicles how the fat guy, frustrated with always being defeated by Zack and his friends, goes on a quest to attain the perfect shape, a perfect sphere. He starts eating lots more ice cream until he achieves his perfect shape, renaming himself the Perfect One, and ultimately he becomes the size of a planet. Then there's other important planets like Shirek, where a race of aliens called the Triptosians live. They're an aggressive people and see themselves as superior to other races. Some of them are gigantic, but most are human-sized. The first one to appear was a villain, a boss from one of my games, but over time we learned they're not all evil. Some, like Matak Roshivej, the star of my comic Balzac Origins Matak, are good people. You can make stories and games that take place on any of these worlds, and lots more. You can flesh out their lore, or explore corners of Shri or Zoniat, or any other world that I haven't had time to mention here. Or you can create your own planet, which is part of the PCG universe. After all, it is a big universe, and a lot of it hasn't been discovered yet. Some of you may have already created your own planets with their own lore for your own games or your own stories, and you can connect those to the PCG universe like Epic Worlds PCG did. You see, Epic Worlds had already created his own universe with a bunch of unique planets, which he called the Shogun universe for the lore of his card games like Epic Wars TCG. When he heard about PCGs, he pretty quickly decided that his Shogun planets are actually part of the PCG universe, meaning that Zack and Zuvak and their friends and enemies can visit these planets, and they did. The Shogun universe became the Shogun sector of the PCG universe, with planets like Gondo, an old planet with tons of different forms of life such as the Varks, aliens who are really good lawyers, and a race of clowns on a stick similar to Zuvak. That planet has a major war going on between two factions called the Hento and the Kova. And since Epic connected his lore to the PCG universe, we find out that the company, yes, the same company that Zack and his friends fight, is supplying the Hento in their war against the Kova on planet Gondo. Shogun has lots more worlds like Aiko, an ocean planet inhabited by ice-dwelling sea creatures, and Ghostax, a planet purely inhabited by ghosts. And speaking of ghosts, exploring other planets isn't the only place to explore in the PCG universe. Some new games take place on good ol' Earth, but reveal parts of it we hadn't seen before. Like Chris's PCG Ghost, which stars the ghost of Baron Mortimer von Fogwhistle, who has to get rid of a family of the living who's moved into his house using his sneaky ghost powers. And he starts to unravel a mystery that goes a lot deeper than that. We learn that ghosts operate according to the ghost rules, a set of rules, or more like laws of physics, I guess, that govern what ghosts can do. So we're exploring a whole side of the PCG universe we didn't know about before, the ghosts and how they work, but also in A Scarf's Tale, also by Chris, we find out that clothing can secretly be alive in this universe, and a scarf has to go on an adventure to rescue his friend. So there's a lot going on under your nose in this universe with lots more to be discovered. We've also had PCGs that have explored the distant past of this universe, like the PCG's Genesis in Exile by Pierre that takes place in an ancient city called Babel, close to the beginning of time. That city and its tower, the Basilica of Heaven, were once populated by lots of people, but they've all gone, converted into Umbrians, a shadow people like ghosts who are connected to this world only through their masks. One of the Umbrians, known as Lust, was originally a human woman named Castidas and one of the counselors of Babel. She's also the one who converted everyone into Umbrians, but things aren't as simple as they seem. Even though she was defeated at the end of the second game, Exile, Umbrians can be brought back many times. And we find out that she's survived through the millennia up to the present day, because in my PCG Zuvak, The Life and Times of a Clown on a Stick, which is a prequel story about how Zuvak was first created by the company, we find out that Castidas, now under the name Lily, has been brought back by one of the programmers at the company. And she's been manipulating the company, and she even, it turns out, played a hand in creating Zuvak, bringing all of this full circle. But some folks don't want their games to be part of the PCG universe at all, even as a distant planet. Some set their stories in their own alternate universes, which are part of the PCG multiverse. It's possible for characters from the PCG universe to visit these universes through portals or other forms of interdimensional travel. One example of this is the Techno Zombies series, which lots of folks have added games to. That series is set on an Earth in an alternate universe called the Infected Universe, where a zombie outbreak has happened and zombies have mixed with technology to become the Techno Zombies. There's lots more alternate universes as well, but I'm not going to get much into the multiverse since really that deserves its own video. But the PCG universe continues to grow, with Compec Dev showing how deities named Croconow and Mythar led to the creation of the PCG universe, and Sketchy Penguin, Cyriadeus, and many others creating their own worlds within this universe as well. There's so much to explore, and I really hope some of you will enrich this lore. This is a basic overview of the universe, and necessarily I'm leaving out a ton of lore, otherwise this video would be 10 hours long. But if you want to explore further, I have lore videos on the channel that go more in depth on particular parts of it. I have one where I break down the lore of Zuvak, and some where I go over the history of the planet Shri. In the comments down below, I'll leave a link to my playlist of PCG lore breakdowns, and I hope to make more videos like this in the future. I also recommend you check out the PCG Wiki at pcg.fandom.com, which is the encyclopedia of all the characters, games, and most importantly, the lore in this universe. Which, once again, you can add to, and any games you create we will consider canon, and they'll wind up in the wiki themselves. But okay, maybe you're sitting there thinking, that's all pretty cool, I'd love to make a game set in that world, but I'm still kind of intimidated, right? I mean, having seen this video, I still don't know all the details of the story, so I'm afraid I'll get something wrong. And look, I get that, but that's okay. It's okay to start making games or stories in this universe, even if you do get some things wrong. I mean, I've made games that made mistakes about Chris's lore, like about Zuvak, for example. And when I learned what I had gotten wrong, I just continued the story, but corrected those mistakes in the next game. And it's fun. This is not a super strict world where everyone has to get everything perfectly right. This is a chill space. This universe is a fun sandbox to play in, and no one should feel intimidated. I want you guys to look at all this lore and see possibilities, not limitations. I want you to hear about Shri and go, ooh, I wonder if there are undersea communities on Shri. Let's make a game about that. The fun of this is to keep exploring, to keep building on what each other have created. And yeah, it's fun. Join in. So yeah, thanks for watching, folks, and PCG you later.